So it seems there's not just one kit for the Leviathan Dreadnought coming, there's two different options. Hello and welcome back to Warspecs Tactics, where today we're talking 40k model releases, and Games Workshop's recent news about the Leviathan Dreadnought release, in that there won't just be the one kit for the model, there's now going to be two completely separate plastic kits to cover all of the weapon options that Forge World had for the model. The Leviathan Dreadnought is the Hulking Siege Dreadnought that you can field both in Horus Heresy and in 40k, and along with quite a lot of the kits from Heresy, it's being redone, and out of the Forge World range, it's perhaps one of the most popular kits that they make, to the extent where they've made Legion-specific Leviathan Dreadnoughts for quite a few of the specific legions in Heresy. There's that much demand. So previously, a few weeks back, they showed off this guy, the new Leviathan Dreadnought that's looking at least fairly similar to the previous one, replacing some rather expensive resin components with some nice shiny new plastic, and really quite nice if you did want to field one of these bad boys in 40k, as I do think that the prices from Forge World for this guy are really quite expensive. £90, $140 or €110. It costs quite a bit as you have to buy the main body and then the individual arms separately. Even if Games Workshop were to charge some fairly extortionate amounts for this guy, I can't help but think it's still going to represent a pretty decent price reduction if you did want to pick up the model. My guess would be something not too dissimilar to the price for the Redemptor Dreadnought, which in terms of size and plastic is a fairly similar kit. That one clocks in at £42.50 or $70 at the moment, I believe. When they previously showed off the Redemptor Dreadnought's kit, they showed off a bunch of fancy guns, but the melee options for the Leviathan were mysteriously missing. At the moment, in Heresy and 40k, you can choose the ranged options, the Gravflux Bombard, Storm Cannon, and Cyclonic Melter Lance, but there's also a couple of melee options, Leviathan Siege Claws for killing elite infantry, or the Leviathan Siege Drill, which tears apart tanks and vehicles with ease. For this kit painted as the Imperial Fist, it did seem that there would be no melee options in the kit, as otherwise they'd probably have shown them off. That does appear to be confirmed to be the case now. Perhaps still the biggest question for this kit is whether or not you're going to be able to double up on those ranged weapons and, say, have two Storm Cannons and two Gravflux Bombards in the kit. I think it would be quite annoying if they didn't have that, as often you just want two of the same guns to double down at being good against the same target, though flexibility isn't always terrible. Now though we know the fate of those missing Leviathan options, I was wondering whether or not they might just be saying that if you wanted melee Leviathans, you'd still have to get the parts through the Forge World web store and get resin upgrades for this plastic kit. But it does appear that that question's answered, as there's going to be two different Leviathan boxes, one for the ranged options and one for the melee ones, and you're going to have to choose which you'd prefer. So this guy on the right here is the new model that they've just shown off, the melee version of the Leviathan Siege Dreadnought. This one's equipped with the Leviathan Siege Claws. According to the preview article, they say we'll be seeing this hulking monstrosity hit the front lines a little bit before its long-range version, which would imply that it's going to be released earlier, despite the fact that they've shown off the ranged one first. It's kind of interesting, at least for the models that they've shown off, there are a few differences between the body of the melee one and the ranged one. I'm genuinely not sure whether the extra bits might just be optional extras that you can put on both kits, or whether you'd get the different appearance depending on which one you choose. The new one they've shown off have some slightly reinforced armour plates on the shoulders of it, and a sort of little crown of spikes above the head of the thing. I think if I had to guess between the two, I suspect that they're both going to be optional extras, maybe a head swap like they do on quite a lot of their models these days, and those armour plates look like they could just be added on over the regular curved armour of the one that we'd already seen. I guess it's not impossible that they could be extras that are included on the sprue for the melee arms, but my guess would be that they'd probably be on the main body if they're upgrades for that. Otherwise, from what you actually get in this melee kit, it appears that you have two different siege drills and two different siege claws, so you can at least double up on these options, as well as all the standard body options that we've seen on the other kit, either the choice of the Volkite calivers or the flamers on the body, and the optional Phosphex discharger on the top. It's kind of interesting that that Phosphex discharger thing has different names in Heresy and 40k. In 40k, the little missile things just count as regular hunter-killer missiles, where in 30k it has a completely different profile. I think it's maybe an interesting choice that they've decided to have one kit with just the ranged options and one kit with just the melee options. I guess maybe the whole thing might be a bit more expensive if they'd included the melee sprue and the ranged sprue, and each time you wound up with a Leviathan Dreadnought, you wound up with a whole ton of spare arms depending on which one you were using. I must admit it's a little bit annoying if you did want to have, say, one ranged arm and one combat arm though. You wouldn't be able to build that particular build from this kit. I think if you did want to have a bit more flexibility, then you'd have a fair few options. You could just pick up 2 of the things, which maybe is what Games Workshop might be intending in the first place. Might not be the worst thing ever, I guess, depending on how many Leviathan Dreadnoughts you want in your life. Otherwise, it does appear that the upgrade options still seem available from Forge World. It might need a little bit of converting to mount them on the plastic versions, but I guess that seems to be an option. Otherwise, with a fair few spare arms in each kit, you might find people selling them on eBay or something if you didn't want to pick up an entire new kit and you just wanted one gun or one melee arm. Overall, they look pretty cool, and I think it's pretty cool that they're reimagining the whole kit and not just part of it. For 40k rules for the combat weapons, Leviathan Dreadnoughts can be fielded both for the Chaos Space Marines and for the Loyalists. I think typically at the moment the choices that you'd want to take are either dual ranged weapons or a ranged and a melee combo. I don't think there's really quite enough reward for doubling up on the melee weapons unless you're purely going for rule of cool and looks. I mentioned the range choices in the previous video. I think my favourites are the Gravflux Bombard and the Storm Cannons for range. The Cyclonic Melter Lance is very dangerous, but also disturbingly short range at 18 inches when the thing doesn't move all that fast, though some chapters like Salamanders will still get a whole load out of it. For the combat weapons, you've either got the choice of the Siege Claw or the Siege Drill. The Siege Claw is Strength 14, AP 3 and Damage 3, and each time you make a fighting attack with a Siege Claw you get an additional attack, so typically that's going to be 6 attacks for the Loyalist, I guess slightly less for the Chaos Marines now they've lost Hateful Assault. Or if you went with the Siege Drill, then that's Strength 14, AP 4, Damage 2d3, but if you attack vehicles they get a damage of 6, which is a pretty big upgrade. It does mean it's pretty feasible if you roll very well to wreck something like an Imperial Knight in a single turn. Though in general with average damage without rerolls, against most vehicles you're going to be getting 2 or 3 wounds through, so 12 or 18 wounds. You also get some melter guns included in the combat weapons as well, so that's quite nice as well. I think both the Siege Claw and the Siege Drill are pretty well balanced against each other. If you do want to add a bit of melee threat, one will do better against infantry, the other will do far better against tanks. They definitely have issues though. They don't have core, which means they compete badly with other big dreadnoughts like Redemptors, and also that 1 command point relic tax does make them a bit less attractive in Warzone Nephilim. There's usually quite a lot of pressure on pre-game command points already these days. In general, it means that you probably don't want more than one of these, and probably going to be wanting to build around it with any synergies that you can put on it, things like Tech Marines or Warp Smiths, or maybe the Iron Hands for the Loyalists. Overall though, pretty interesting news as to the kit release. Let me know what you think of Leviathan Dreadnoughts getting 2 different kits for the Horus Heresy. Is it a good thing that they're getting the plastic bits, or should they have just put them all together in one kit and have all the option arms available? If you've enjoyed the video, feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics, where I'll certainly keep the regular 40k stuff coming. I do tend to post new videos pretty much every day. Finally, if you have been enjoying all the videos on the channel, I would just like to mention that Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page as well. It's how I can afford to keep on making videos like this quite so regularly, so if you are enjoying quite a bit, any support is enormously appreciated. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things happen next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.